Hey guys, Alex from Futurephonic here. Hope you're all super well. We had a few questions about our new advert, the Let's Make an ARP advert, this one.
Let's make an ARP. Every ARP can do this. And this. But what about this?
The main question being like how to recreate it. I think people are asking about the synths, also how Rhythmizer is being used, because we like run through the features, but obviously it's like a 2-minute ad, so we don't really go in detail on how it's actually being used. So let's look at that. Gonna get into the backing track as well. But yeah, I just wanted to look into the Ableton Live project, where I did a bulk of the work before sending it to Cubase to kind of mix it and add a little bit more processing there. So I'm going to show you like both aspects of that. I really just want to show you like everything about it. So, and you can skip to the bits you want in the chapters down below. And yeah, let's get into it. Here's the backing track, which we can look at later. Here's just the live project. This was the actual MIDI, which I captured in the ad. I recorded everything from the ad, and so right, let's just get into it. So the first thing that you'll notice is that there's like 6 synths going on. It was actually only the first 3 which I sent to Cubase to get mixed. So these didn't end up getting used. If you're wondering like how I got the synth sounding kind of quite big and juicy, the first answer is I just like layered it a lot. So I've got like 3 different synths that get used, which kind of, honestly, the 2 Junos are very similar, very like sawtooth sounding. And the Oberheim just creates this kind of fat, luscious sound underneath, whereas these didn't really get used. They were just interesting, but they were sort of getting in the way. And so what are we looking at? So here's a Rhythmizer channel where my input chords are going into, which are going to go into Rhythmizer and be processed and send out to a synth. And yeah, the way I actually did it was I mostly did it with this Juno, this main Juno sound, recorded it there. And then I took this MIDI, which I'd recorded, and I actually sent it through other synths. And then I deleted them. So, and to show you guys today what I did, I had to kind of recover them from past projects. So they're like almost certainly the same presets that I was working from, but not necessarily the same ones. But it's so close, I think it doesn't matter. Yeah, so here's the main MIDI that we recorded. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to run you through this Juno and all of the inserts on it. And all the synths got quite similar treatment with the same presets. So kind of kill all those birds with one stone. Now, before making this ad, I bought the entire Arturia 5 collection, I think it is, where we just get all the synths. And that just helped me to just you know what it's like, you get a whole bunch of new synths, you just blast through them and all these new presets. And I really got there quite quickly just by using Analog Lab to just scroll through all of their presets on all of their synths. And yeah, the main one I kept coming back to was the Juno. This was the Noisy Anthem preset. I don't really think I really modified it that much. It just sounded good. So Noisy Anthem preset. A bit of compression, not much. Just a tiny amount. EQ. As we'll go into later, I have this like Summit synth bass. And if we look on the meters, see it's really active in that sort of 160 to 200 range. So when it came to EQing the synth, I wanted it to really be sloping off around there so that they could coexist quite nicely and not get too muddy. So actually, I think a lot of the fatness that you're hearing is actually this Summit This is my Novation Summit synth bass. And then more mixing happened later, which we'll show you in Cubase. Soothe, not too much. I just put Soothe on pretty much everything because it just looks after usually like the mids, the high mids, just to make sure everything sounds posh and just not harsh at any time. Chorus ensemble, so I'm just using the Ableton vibrato. Just gives it some wonkiness. Almost kind of obligatory for this kind of chorusy Juno sound. Speaking of which, using the towel chorus, so this is free. A lot of you guys probably already have this. It's such a no-brainer for this kind of sound. Turn off the it just turns like a sort of thin-ish sound into chorus, fat, wide, juicy. So yeah, I do use that a lot. Like really a lot. Yeah, towel chorus. Found myself using a little bit more delay and reverb than usual, just because there's no real background elements per se. There's no like background detail, so I could just kind of fill out the whole picture with kind of slightly smushy ambience, and it just made the synth sound bigger. So I just was quite liberal with using delay and reverb, including using the delay and reverb in the synth as well. And there's more reverb which happens in mixing, so just lots of delay and reverb. Because Rhythmizer was actually set to have a bit of a swing, I put it on 1/8 notes delays. If you have like a much of a serious swing or sort of shuffle at all, then it can sound a bit off, out of time if you start using like dotted delays and stuff like that. But eighth notes are a safe bet for that. And I use this Valhalla delay as my main delay. Vintage verb, you guys all know this. And then I'm using the glue compressor, track release all the way down and threshold lows. So really squashing the life out of it. And then just using it as parallel compression. So I just have like a third of it dialed in. And that's after my delay and reverb. So that's kind of hard compressing the delay and reverb. Really bringing out that aggressive ambience and then just dialing a little bit back in. I'd say like parallel compression and even like saturation after delay and reverb is, for me, it's like a really key part of getting like intensity and energy into sound. Bit of LFO tool, but not much, just to get a bit of pump, but you can see it's only on 9. And yeah, that's about it. I adjusted this, I think after recording the MIDI. So it's flowing in quite a nice legato way at first. But when the gate time comes down and we start getting a bit more staccato, I found I needed to adjust this downwards. So around here. I'll leave it there for now. Okay, and here's the other Juno. And there's nothing specifically about it which I sort of really liked. It's more what it does for the main synth. I see this very much as like backing up the main synth, just adding fatness. And that's also got the chorus, delay, and reverb. So it's just adding more smush, adding a bit more intensity. And the actual synth preset was pizzicato number 1. There you go. That's the sound. That's how you can get the sound. Is you can start by that preset. same effects, slightly different amounts, maybe. No, so basically the same effects. Then we have this really nice Oberheim. I really recommend this Oberheim synth. All of these presets sound incredible. I haven't learned the synth yet, so I'm not like making my own sounds on it yet. So I again, it's kind of adding like a warm, luscious kind of chorusness underneath those synths. So it's really these three synths together. What we're going to see in the Cubase mix phase is that I'm actually automating the levels so that you're hearing a blend of synths and you're always hearing like an optimal blend. So when it gets more staccato, I think this Juno comes down and this Juno comes up. So that was actually a lot of fun, was riding a blend on all of these three sounds. I don't know. So there's no more effects on the masters. So I'd say let's get into Rhythmizer. All right, so now instead of listening to this clip, I'm going to set this to monitor from this channel. I've got all of these other synths are actually monitoring from this Juno channel. So this MIDI is going into Rhythmizer, and then this channel is receiving that MIDI, and all of the subsequent channels are receiving it from this channel. So the MIDI is being kind of passed along. So let's take a look at the actual chords. Like had a few questions about this. These are the chords. It was just a 2-chord, 4-bar sequence. If I actually drag this into the synth, let's take a listen. Nothing particularly to write home about, but I will say that this is my workflow for any arpeggiated line. So I will actually start it with just these full chords before arpeggiating. I want to get a nice chord sequence. And once the sequence of chords is sounding nice, then I'll put it into the arpeggiator. But I don't find I can really write chord sequences while they're arpeggiating. For some reason, that just doesn't work for me. So those were the chords. Let's go into Rhythmizer. So I'm just going to load this preset here. I don't know why that's on. With this advert, I had less than 2 minutes to go through all of the new features of Rhythmizer Fusion, like the new update, the entire new arpeggiator. So I did that by basically figuring out what features I wanted to show. Show the direction, show the extend knob, and then go into like the double time, half time, and then come back here, bring the extend knob down, check out the velocity and the loop, etc. And so I had to figure out like a little adventure course to go through those features in a musical way. And when I was finished doing that, and the plugin was in a totally different state, I just came and reset it again and just kept doing take after take. Okay, so here's my starting point. Now, I think a cool way to do this would be to just go through the actual ad from the starting point, and then we can look at all the ways that Rhythmizer is being used in a little bit more detail.
Let's make an ARP. Every ARP can do this. And this. But what about this? Yeah, that's the one.
All right, so we're just showing off the direction here. All of this stuff, by the way, is covered in the tutorial that we made for Rhythmizer Fusion, but we can cover it again in order if you want to take a look in more detail. So just doing the up and down direction here. And to actually run through this, let's record it with like a live stream of notes happening so you can see exactly what's happening. And we have had quite a few questions from Ableton Live users on how to record it so that you get that stream of notes. So if you're not an Ableton user, just go to the next little mini chapter on the bottom bar. But if you are an Ableton user, you want to find out, let's look at that now real quick. So what I'm going to do is here's the channel I'm recording to. That is the channel with the synth on. I'm going to create a new clip, and I'm going to make it really, really, really long. Let's do like 500 bars or something. The reason for that is if I just make it 1 bar long, we would hope that it would just kind of expand and get longer as the stream of notes keeps going. But what it actually does is it kind of keeps resizing itself as it's getting bigger, and it just doesn't give us that look. You know, if I'm doing it like a 2 or 3 minute long stream of notes recording, I don't want to ever run out of space. So I just make like a really long clip. Then I'll make sure that the synth channel is armed. And then I'll just use the session record button. And I'll make sure that follow is on. And then from there I can try and get the optimal zoom settings as well. Unfortunately, follow gets turned off when I do that. But anyway, and I actually have that on a shortcut. I also have editing the Rhythmizer on a shortcut. I didn't even know you could shortcut that until recently, so that's quite cool. All right, so that's how I do it. Let's start a new recording. Let's head into Rhythmizer. All other DAW users can join us now. So, okay, so we're coming in here, and then we're just adding downwards direction. So we have up and down direction. And then I'm using the extend knob and pushing that all the way to the top. And that's just taking all of the chord notes and just extending them, so repeating them up the keyboard. Then I'm coming over here to this little kind of, it's a bit of an Easter egg. It's half time and double time. So when I was designing like the look of Rhythmizer, I didn't want all these features constantly crowding you. So there are a few little bits that are just kind of baked in, little secrets there. And that's, you have halftime and double time. What do we go to next?
All right, let's bring this back and calm it down a little bit. Let's bring the velocity down a touch and randomize it. We'll do the same for the gate length.
Okay, so we're bringing the extend down. Bringing the velocity down. Randomizing that. And then bringing the gate down. And then
let's try and randomize the direction by about 35%. Now, let's have a little more root note and less melody.
okay, so then we are bringing in some randomized movement. So with this all the way up, we're having full randomization. We can have just random on as well. That's quite cool. Or we could have, I think we have just upwards direction and 35% randomization. So mostly upwards, but with a fair amount of randomization. And then we're bringing the chance down. And so just in case you haven't watched the other videos, the chance knob is just giving you more bass note versus more melody. And by bass note, I mean the lowest note of these chords right there. And that's quite cool. It's a bit like if you're playing like piano, with two hands, and you have like one hand doing the bass, you can get quite cool effect there. And I think initially I actually had like a sort of bassline notes under here, which I was playing around with. And this is really cool when you do this, right? So you have your chord sequence here, and then you have a sort of bassline sequence here, and these are kind of operating like the bassline. And then you can just have mostly these notes, but with these notes kind of popping up on top. Like let's listen to how that sounds. So it's almost completely just those bassline notes, but you can bring in more top melody. I actually quite like that. You can throw in some random octaves. Okay, might need to just go away and write that track. I didn't do that in the actual final track because it clashed with the bass line. But something to think about. That's quite a cool effect. Right, so what are we doing next?
We can slowly blend in the chord that we're playing.
Okay, so next we are using the Fusion fader, which is this guy here, which, as you probably know, it just switches between arpeggio and chord triggers. Any chords coming from over here are going to go through these additional options. Yeah, let's hear how that sounds. Bring this back down. Oops. Cool, so now we're getting kind of like more of like a funky rhythmic thing happening.
Perhaps a little touch of MIDI glitch.
All right, coming over here to the MIDI glitch. Here's that shuffle I was talking about. That was around 15%, and then turning the glitch up. And then we can have different intensities if we want. This higher intensities will bring like more like 30-second rolling notes and all right, so things are getting funky. I then turn that back off because didn't need to have loads of that playing through the advert. Wasn't quite in the vibe. Then we're using the loop knob, so always quite addictive. Yeah, so hitting the loop knob.
Let's throw some longer notes in. We're getting some great groove ideas here. Let's tighten things up.
All right, so coming over here to the rhythm tab, just throwing in longer subdivisions. So currently it's all 16ths, right? We're getting all 16ths, but then interrupting that with longer groove amounts. Of course, we're recording everything as well, so nothing's getting lost. Yeah, and then coming over here to the step sequencer. So I pre-programmed these steps right here. If you're looking at these and wondering what the different colors and shapes are, again, check out the tutorial. I go into that in like full depth there. But yeah, so now we're adding that. Yeah, I think that was
A
mostly
little bit with
it.
our step sequencer. We're capturing some great rhythmic parts here.
That's basically what I did for this Juno synth. I went through that and I recorded a whole bit, and that bit ended up looking like this. And then I took that MIDI and I ran it through the Oberheim, I ran it through the Juno, and then I actually ran it through these other synths, but again, they didn't sort of sound quite. I mean, there was some cool ones. But again, they're just kind of clouding that image. So I just kept it all on the Juno. Let's go to Cubase and see how the process was finished, and then I'll come back in and just show the backing track real quick. All right, so here we are in the Cubase project. I just have the backing track up here. I put the backing track through the auto boom, which gave it a nice bit of extra saturation and fattened that up a little bit. But yeah, that's not really what we're looking at, right? Let's look at the synths. So here is the main Juno. Here's the Oberheim. This does sound a bit pluckier than the version which I recovered in the Ableton project. So that's either a different version of the same preset or just a different preset, something a little bit pluckier. But I didn't do much in the synth. So if you have the Oberheim, it was just a different preset, but it's having pretty much the same role, I feel. And then that's the second Juno, which in this case, I think it's got the filter turned up more. But yeah, like I said, I recovered what I could. Right, and that's the second Juno there. Individually, I am not doing much, just a little bit of extra soothe, not much going on here, just a little bit of compression. I think what you're mostly hearing is the phaser and a little bit of extra processing here. And so as I mentioned before, I'm actually automating the levels of all three synths. In a way, it's quite a weird piece of music because it's, going through all these different sections, straight arpeggiation, more of like a funky rhythmic thing, little glitchy bits, the step sequencer, right? So some synths needed to be pushed to the front and then brought back depending on like how they reacted to those different scenarios. Let's take a look at the processing. So Cubase phaser. I just wanted to add a little bit of like fun, kind of slightly groovy sparkliness. That was the thinking there. Over here, okay, so doing more drastic high passing and a little bit of low passing as well. I usually think of this as like, here's where kind of hi-hats, you want those to have like full clarity without mushing in with the top of the synth. And also like just low passing stuff here, just if you're doing stuff which is like a little bit more kind of slightly vintage sounding, like we were with the Juno and the chorus and the vibrato, low passing actually just makes it sort of sound warmer. I also mentioned that we wanted our synth bass to really be dominating in that sort of 160 to 250 kind of area. So really cleaning it up there. Also, okay, I can see what I was doing was a bit of mid-side scanning. So what I do is I get two bands. One's on side, one is on mid. I'll just select them both, and then as I move them, they'll kind of move in opposite like that. You can get some really interesting effects this way, sometimes even the other way around. So it gave it a nice little side boost there. I would probably be checking that in mono to see how that actually translates. But so I left those there. I don't think there's much going on. More soothe. Hard to overdo with this plugin. More subtle compression. More reverb. As I mentioned, was giving it, more delay and reverb than usual. A little bit more LFO tool pump. And then finally, a bit of CQ boost. Yeah, what you're really seeing is that I'm tracking the synths and following where they sound best and where one should be dominating over another. Let's go back to Ableton and we'll take a look at the backing track. And that should wrap us up. All right, so I did keep the backing track pretty simple. Kick bass, sort of top bass, and then just some drum loops. I guess the main thing I can say on this is that I reference like absolute crazy on this one. Like I chose a good reference track. I referenced against it, like to the decibel. I literally would like see that my kick, that their kick was at like maybe minus 10 dB at 50 hertz. I noticed that they had a little boost on the snare around 2.5K. I isolated a section where I could see their bass was like a little bit lower than I usually have actually. And yeah, so when I'm doing music which is less genre defined, like I don't reference as much until like way later in the process. But with something like this, like I'm not here to reinvent the wheel. I just want something which just sounds good. And I don't care if it sounds almost identical to another piece of music because the focus is on the synths, Rhythmizer, etc. Then I do think like push yourself to like reference against other stuff, even if just as a starting point, find a good reference track. Where's their kick sitting? Like really look at it. Where's the bass coming in? Okay, it's down there, more in like 40 hertz or whatever. Where's the little snare popping up? Like when they have the impacts, like how loud are those coming in? I spend a lot of time on this stuff when I need to, because when I come back the next day, I'm always surprised by how good it sounds just because I adhere to a reference track. So kick and bass, really, really simple. Kick 3 actually came out while I was working on this. So that was really, really handy. And I just added a little click on top. And then I think I added a little bit more transient from another kick. And that's the finished kick. So bass. I was surprised at how quiet the bass was in this reference track. But usually I would have kick and bass like roughly the same level. Whereas I found the reference bass track was, coming in like 10 dB below, which I guess in the end actually suited quite well. There's like more ambient, kind of feel good house vibes. It's not like in your face bass. And also it's all the way down here. And then the synth bass, sort of top layer or the sort of upper bass creates that, sort of finishes the picture. So that would be and I created that with my Narration Summit, definitely going through Auto Boom. Really, if you can get one of these little boxes, it sounds so nice. But the saturation, maybe bring the low pass filter down a little bit. It's just like so great for getting that sort of sound. Don't think there's too much going on here. These were the chords, just sat nicely on top of the bass line. Summit, Right, I wanted something really, really dark sounding. Composers coming in, not doing much at all, boosting a little bit in that 300 area, adding a little bit at nearly 2K, just to bring out the bite of the transient a little bit. Quite like that. Bringing the width in a little bit, actually, making it a little bit more mid, just very slightly. Usually I use this plugin to make stuff wider. This red area is kind of like the naughty zone. That's where stuff that you won't hear in mono is. Keeping it nice and mono friendly. That was it. I added a little bit of transient noise. Just again, it felt like a bit of a kind of vintagey touch, like an old synth might have some noise on it. I also took that noise from the Summit. And then over here to the drums. Yeah, I mostly just use samples from this great sample pack company called Samplephonics, not Futurephonic, Samplephonics. I really, really rate their stuff. Yeah, so doing a little bit of kind of groove control here. Okay, so here I'm just getting the more eighth notes. Really wanted that more kind of offbeat sort of vibe on the percussion. All right, so I'm getting this just for the clap, this loop. And I mentioned earlier that kind of 2.2K boost for the snare. Here it is right here. And that was just a case of going like, where's their snare sitting? Where's their clap sitting? And I'm just boosting mine in the same place as I saw on the meter. There. I'm just going, oh, I'll try boosting that too. And it sounded really good. So point being, referencing is awesome for that. Getting a little bit more, yeah, like just programming in the groove there. And so, yeah, throw the synths on top. And I think that is absolutely everything I could possibly say about this ad. We went through Rhythmizer, how I use that for the performance of the ads, layering lots of synths, how we process those, mix those in Cubase, and and got that sort of final mix together. I guess the very last thing I would say was when I needed to get the levels, for instance, for the synths with the track and then the voiceover on top, when I need to get those completely right, what I would actually do is press this button here, which turns off all of my screens. And then I had the volumes for critical elements on the MIDI controller, and I would actually mix it with black screen. Anyone who was mixing music before Pro Tools came in will know that, and that wasn't me, but will know that when you're just looking at a mixer and you're just hearing the music, you're hearing it so much closer. You're not having that visual stimulation. I really want people to be doing this more. I would love to see people doing this more. So I'm going to make a whole video about how I set it up in both PC and Mac. That always really elevates the process for me of making and mixing music. So There's gonna be a video on that coming up soon. But if you guys want to see any videos in specific, like, do let me know, and do be specific. Like, I'm like crazy about Rhythmizer and would love to show you guys more tips and tricks there. So let me know down in the comments. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Keep rocking with Rhythmizer. See you later. Bye.